What does this season mean for Steph Curry?
Well, last night's game, Draymond was great, by the way. I want to give him credit. It was his first really good game of the year, and a game, obviously, the Warriors wanted to win. You can't, you draw up to 0-3 and lose to the Pelicans. But we're talking about this game not because the Warriors beat the Pelicans, but because of that exact question, because of this conversation surrounding Steph before the game and what Steph said after the game. And what it means for what this season is going to allow us to see with Steph is what type of superstar is he. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is the greatest shooter of all time, that he's a champion, and that when he has a complementary cast of other great players, he can be one of the most selfless superstars we've ever seen. What we don't yet know is, can he do what we have seen the other great players in this league do, which is when you don't have great supporting players around you, when you do have to be something of a one-man show, is that something that his game is suited for? I heard Steve Kerr before the game talk about, we could try to do what the Rockets do with James Harden, but we don't have the personnel. Well, is some of that personnel Steph Curry? Is some of that, the Warriors their fans love taking shots at Russell Westbrook the year that KD went to Golden State and Russ was a one-man show. But what Russ did that year with a second-best player of Victor Oladipo and a third-best player of Enes Kanter was carry a team to 47 wins through his individual effort and greatness. That's what we haven't had to see yet from Steph Curry. That's what this year's going to tell us if we can see it from Steph Curry.
Yeah, this season for me, it won't be as far as what his legacy means. I think that because of what he's going through, and he's going through something a lot of superstars haven't gone through, where he's losing two other superstars. He lost KD, going back to Brooklyn, and then Clay is hurt. So this roster and who Bob Myers is able to put around Steph in this first year, it's a little limited based on what they're trying to do. They were trying to keep the big three, their big three together, that being Clay, signed him to a max deal, signed Draymond to an extension, traded for D'Angelo Russell. But they were limited as far as their overall movement, and I'm not going to have his whole legacy hinge on the players around him right now. I think Steph Curry is definitely one of the best players that we've ever seen. The league is adjusting. I know that he'll still be one of the best players in the league. He's very unselfish, so I just want to see how it plays out. I don't know what type of team that they have. In the first couple games, he deferred to his teammates, trying to get them involved, trying to fill them out. In last night's game, you could see from the beginning he was far more aggressive, taking over, realizing that he's got to be able to take the lead from the beginning because they're not a very, very talented team.
What strikes me is we're just 5 minutes into the season, and there's a bit of a woe is me attitude we heard it from Draymond, a little bit from Steph, but they've got 3 All-Stars on this team. It's hard to feel sorry for this team. It's not like they lost everyone, and Steph has to carry the entire team on his shoulders.
Well, they have 2 All-Stars, and only one's an offensive player.
Okay.
So it puts a tremendous amount of...
Well, D'Angelo Russell is an all-star. Draymond's an
all-star. Well, I mean, he made the all-star team. He's not a perennial all-star.
Okay, in the most recent season, he made the all-star team, and he was brought there for his offense, so they had something in the interim before.
Yes, absolutely. Back. Yeah, he's a one-dimensional player. They have one other player. I wouldn't call him a star player. He's a max guy.
He's a max guy, not a superstar player.
Yes.
There's different tiers, and I think people know where D'Angelo fits. But to your point, Jenna, the reason the woe is me stuff was irritating is you got to feel like the Orlando Magic fans are like, oh, really? Like this is what we've been trying to build without a Steph Curry. We'd love to have a D'Angelo Russell for a decade now. But Cris, I agree with you that there is part of Steph's legacy that is cemented and will be cemented forever. He's one of the 30 greatest players of all time. He was the first unanimous MVP, and shooting is one of the most important skills in the sport, and he's unanimously regarded as the greatest shooter ever. But can he do what we've seen Harden, that same year that Durant went to Golden State?
That's if you're comparing these guys. Like, if you start this season, you're saying, hey, I'm trying to compare these guys right now in history. No, I'm not trying to compare them right now in history because Harden has his own path. Harden hadn't won anything. So trying to compare him and Steph, that's not the comparison we could make. We should take Steph with someone who's away from the game, someone like Isaiah Thomas or something, compared to someone who's currently
playing.
Okay,
so Dwayne Wade then. Dwayne Wade, the year before they got LeBron. and Chris Bosh, when his second best teammate was Michael Beasley and his third best teammate was Udonis Haslem, they won 47 games off the strength of Dwayne Wade's brilliance. Like, we have seen, hell, Kobe, after they lost Shaq, that first year they missed the playoffs. The next 2 years they got there when the teammates around him before they got Powell were not good, and he averaged 33 a game those 2 years put together. Like, and I'll throw out the big men because big men, it's a different thing. We've seen perimeter guys be put in the position Steph is in. It's why I said going into the year I think they're going to make the playoffs, and that I think that if Clay comes back at the end of the year, they could be a dangerous playoff team because I believe Steph can do it. But we are now, there's an unknown factor. Like, we'll never know how Harden would have looked if he were on the Warriors in place of Steph Curry, if he had that shooting and that system and that around him. We're now getting an idea of what, we will get an idea of what Steph will look like when he doesn't have that around him. And as far as when you're trying to climb up the all-time ranks as far as the greatest players of his generation, that stuff matters.
But shouldn't he be able to do it? Knowing what you know about Steph Curry, shouldn't he be able to carry a team with what he has, where he is, the talent that he has?
He should be able to, all right? But is he going to do it? And if he doesn't do it, to me, it's not going to mark him down in history. Steph is the greatest shooter we've ever seen. He's also one of the greatest guys we've ever seen off the ball. So if there was a comparison, could Harden do that in Golden State? No, he couldn't. Because what Golden State has been about has been ball movement. Is Harden one of the hardest guards in the league? Yes. Is he a better shooter than Steph? No. He's not a better shooter, and he wouldn't be a better asset to Clay or to Draymond. So they're different types of player. Steph is a tremendous, tremendous basketball player, and of all the superstars, he's one of the most selfish. Does it transfer, which
selfless.
It has selfless? One of the does it transfer over to them winning 43 games compared to Harden or Russ winning? That, to me, don't matter that much as far as the history of basketball goes.
You mentioned that he can't hurt himself. You know, I believe you can't go backwards legacy-wise. I agree with that. I think that the idea that Steph, if he would have just retired after last season, could somehow be worse off playing this year than not, I reject that on its face. I don't think he can go backwards legacy-wise. But he can answer. There are some unanswerable questions. Cris said we know. I don't know if you said we know, but Harden couldn't do what Steph did in Golden State. I don't think he could have either, but we don't know because
he doesn't have the skill set.
But did he develop this type of game? It's hypothetical. Did he develop this type of game out of necessity or because it's the only thing he can do? The point I'm making is with Steph, it now removes it from the unknowns. We now get to see it and see what he can do with a more typical NBA roster surrounding him.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.